Hey, there we are. We're on Nick's channel now, I think. There we go. You got your X live there, Nicholas.
Oh yeah.
And hey, there we are on YouTube. Congratulations, Bags. You did it.
Hey, can you stream on 2X Live?
Yes, but you have to
I'm gonna do. You want
authenticate.
to do mine too?
Can't do it. You have to authenticate it. I don't have your Twitter or X
All right,
username
next time.
password stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Did Nick, did you send him a restream invite?
Um, a
Oh,
restream
don't worry about it.
invite.
We can talk about it after. Let's get this started.
Okay.
Let's get this started. Well, I'm not seeing it on YouTube right now. What is going on? It says we're live. It says we're live. There we go. What is going on? Found it. All right. So if you're watching the first minute or two of this YouTube or this X, apologies. We're working through some new software here. But hey guys, we're back. We're live. It's Tuesday. It's 14 minutes and 45 seconds after 12 in the East. GP, what's going on? Nick, how are you?
Doing great. Doing great. Um, as we've kind of discussed, I think September, despite your uh, longer term
Spicy September.
bias, which I think for the most of us, we're leaning to the bullish side. I still think September is going to be somewhat of a volatile, unpredictable kind of month. I think, you've got those I think we're going to rally into the Fed, sell off post Fed. You got those I think we're going to sell off into the Fed, rally post Fed. You got those I think we're just going to keep chopping sideways and then sell out. It's kind of all eyes on Fed. I think really it continues to be a stock picker's market. And, you have like every day you're having something running and pumping. Um, for the very active guys that I kind of run with, those that are, continuing to do the work, have their alerts set, and are, trading the momentum and breakouts, they're doing great. For the longer term guys that are kind of picking their spots and, choosing to add or kind of leg in versus some backfilling are doing fine too. I think those that are getting overly aggressive and too big in their size are going to get and continue to get whipsawed, especially if they're chasing the shiny object of the day. Because it's like you get into something in size and it doesn't really work. All of a sudden you feel like shit. All of a sudden that's running and you want to go chase that. I just think that's the kind of month. And then on a just from the things that I'm seeing and consuming on social media, the noise is getting so loud.
Oh
Everybody's
my
upset
gosh.
about something, and I'm not, of course, like I think everyone probably has a right to be, but it's just, it's like it is just so much. So anyways, I think that just kind of that just plays into my thesis that September is going to be just that kind of month. I think that you should, if again, if it's your style and strategy, I just think that playing small, remaining nimble is the way to go. And your mental capital, preserving that mental capital, I think should be of the utmost priority because we are, again, like we've talked about and said, we are heading into the strongest time of the year. Um, if we are kind of following the COVID roadmap, or the year 2020, there is that likelihood of seeing that post-Fed leg down that would kind of coincide with the Santa Claus rally. And then, maybe we start to see another kind of pull in chop. And then, into next year, we're off to the races. I'm just, there's something inside of me that I think next year is going to be an absolute monster of a year. And as it's funny, like as Duzio says, you got to survive the ride. And to do that, at this current state, I think you either be small and nimble or you're going to get kind of chopped up. But that's kind of my take on the market right now. I don't think, yeah. Anyways, GP, what's your how you leaning over there?
Bring up the SPX chart, Ben.
Sure, I'd love to do that for you, GP.
Do you remember the level we tagged?
I keep hitting DPX for whatever reason. There you go.
I think you
Yeah,
marked it on.
6,500.
No, 6738 is that fib extension.
Oh,
We
you said
have
what number we tagged, I thought.
no that we tagged on the chart itself, right? Like we noted, sorry.
Was this
Um,
I think I did it on the pie
6738.
chart.
That's your level. That's the 123.6 extension where we should encounter finally some weakness. This market is not showing weakness right now. This
Yeah.
is the same level that it tagged multiple times. Sorry, the 100% extension, which was 6120, was the one that we tagged multiple times in January before the February breakdown, right? So I still think we're pushing into the 6738. A lot more people are on board, but what I will tell you is I have people who are non-market participants wondering when to trim, should sell it all, and asking me about the highest valued market ever. And those are all, to me, anecdotal. I get that, but also no one wants a part of this, right? And so if
No.
no one wants a part of this and they're trying to trim down so they don't get caught in another crash because everything else is according to the Buffett indicator, according to whatever charts that these clickbaiters, because they are clickbaiters, because they're not giving you actionable data. They're not saying, "Hey, I would do this and do that." It's all clickbait. It's all pontification. It's all nonsense. I'm giving you levels. We're talking about levels and ideas. We get to 6738, which has always been my target on this run. Um, and then we retest 6100 and the roars will get loud, like super super loud. um and it's best to ignore it unless we break 6100 with some there's a war, there's something that's outside of our control. We've been technical, we have been technical since April 7th. Not a single thing has changed. Every moment of weakness is a back test to a intraday, 50-day, intraday, 200-day, intraday fib, whatever you want to call it, whatever the players for the day are, and nothing else. And until we start breaking levels, until we start crushing levels, even today, the weakness in small caps, which in this market, they refuse to front run anything, right? That's not what we're getting anymore. We're getting either flow driven moves or news driven moves, but interest rates are coming. Today's revision probably confirms it. Interest rates are probably coming in a fury, right? It's probably going to be pretty aggressive because those revisions were pretty bad. And yet they sold down small caps today. And they sold down small caps to where, Nick? Friday's low. Back test,
Yeah.
right? Like it's been technical. It continues to be technical. When technicals break, we will get loud here. We will tell you that it's something's broken. You need to get cautious. It is not now. It hasn't been. Um, are there signs that there's a bit of distribution up here? Sure. Doesn't mean we can't keep pushing because the rotation, look at it today. It's all mega caps. Every single thing almost that's green, starting with our beloved Netflix.
I was
Uh,
going to just go there. I was getting ready.
starting with our beloved Netflix or my beloved Netflix, if it's not yours. Spots right there. Um, Google, Meta, AMD, Nvidia, Amazon, Microsoft, Palantir, Coin, and even the shit stain that is called Tesla.
SMCI. Woo.
Yes, yes. But even the shit stain that's called Tesla, right? Is managing to be green and not super red. Um, stay bullish until you're told otherwise.
Hey,
The
GP,
markets will tell you. They don't just crash.
GP, I know you ignore a lot of the macro noise, and you too for the most part. I probably pay more attention to that because that's just how I'm wound, and it doesn't always define how I trade, but I don't fall back on just everything's technical, right? Like I try to find something underneath that might be part of the goulash that we throw together.
Yeah.
With this job number, first, we don't know what real job numbers are anymore since we're firing the statisticians. But I don't necessarily know that it matters. And I'm not saying that 910 or 11,000 is real or it's not real. I don't think that matters. I think something that we've talked about is we've all seen the market and the economy, right, are completely wildly different things. And when the economy has been in the tank in the past, we've seen massive bull runs. And that's one of the reasons why I was going to bring up Netflix. But the point that I'm making is the Fed doesn't meet until next week, right? And they have the revised numbers from this week, which everyone anticipated them trimming a quarter of a point at least. I think this gives them an open door to go maybe a half a basis point. I'm not saying that that happens, but I think this opens the door for them. And as we know, this administration wants lower interest rates. So, how do we get lower interest rates if the Fed's not going to do what we tell them, right? Maybe we throw out a bigger number than what it was. And I'm not saying that that happened, but I'm just saying we have seen that we have been on a path for months that this administration has wanted lower interest rates. And I think this gives the data dependent Fed the ability to use that as cover. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that totally makes sense. And ultimately, um, we should be tracking the 2 year on interest rates in general. And we're not. And so the Fed has a lot of room to cut if they need to match the 2 year. Um, I, the other part of the job stuff is it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like all these tech companies overhired in COVID like crazy, right? Like, and it's the same tech companies that are now contributing to the job number revisions. And so it's a self-fulfilling circle jerk, so to speak. Um, and so like they're still crushing numbers, right? Like we just saw some of the best earning prints on the market. And that's reflected by them cutting expenses via jobs, right? And so the revisions make sense.
Well, and I think that leads into a little bit of what my thesis has been coming into all this macro news dump that's going to happen for the next week and a half is all of a sudden, right, you have earnings that have continually been better than ever before. And when companies don't raise guidance or expectations, it's all of a sudden a reason to sell them off, which is what we saw coming out of earnings. It wasn't that their top or bottom line was bad, it's all on what's forward looking. And because they weren't crazy bullish to the upside, we saw several good companies get knocked down a peg or two. And I think that's where maybe some of the buying opportunities, if we continue this bull run, maybe are companies that gave maybe light or more conservative guidance than some of their peers. I don't know. Thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, probably. I certainly wouldn't disagree with that. I think, from a technical perspective, if a name gets crushed post EPS for whatever the reason, I like to see those gaps get filled pretty quickly. But I think that you're gonna see, yeah, let me think about that for a minute. There's already, for whatever reason, ARM came to mind when you mentioned that. I don't know what they said. post EPS, but it got hit pretty hard, smacked right into the
Yeah.
200-day. And on a larger time frame, the argument, or I guess not the argument, the question then probably is, coming out of this whatever chop range that we're in, when we ultimately do see some definitive resolution one direction or the other, let's just say it's to the upside, are you wanting to get into names that are going to be either following through, which might end up being extended, or are you going to be wanting to get in names that are fresh breakouts? ARM and TEM are the two that like just stick out. They look kind of identical to me.
Tem looks so much beastlier though.
Yeah, totally. Because
Well,
you're right there at highs.
I'm going to take it a step
It's
further though, and
yeah.
we won't know this until I think Thursday is their report. But look at Adobe, and I typed in the wrong one. It's been hated forever, right? And it has 2 days. So yeah, today Thursday is earnings, right? Like most of the other IGV names did better than staying on balance, right? I look at a name like Adobe and I hate the laggard trade, but I kind of think names in a laggard trade that are in good sectors that are profitable companies, and I'm not just talking my book because I bought a position in Adobe last week. I really think that that might be a place where you see more upside. I know winners keep winning, but how much pricing forward can those companies' prices be? And I'm talking about, the Palantirs of the world, and I'm talking about all these other things that have run an ungodly amount of percentage since April. I don't know.
I,
Yeah.
it's
But
not in my
it's
style
still all
necessarily. Oh,
technical, right? This is our guys. It's still all, as you just said, Nick, like they beat it down, right? Arm right into the 200 day. Another great example is Hims. Non-stop selling, tags the 200 day and immediately reverses with a Morningstar reversal pattern, right? Like it it is it is to me, I keep saying it, they're on a mission to divorce you from your shares in
Yeah.
so many
yeah,
names,
totally. Yes.
right?
The difference
Lemonade is
between
another
like
one.
hymns,
9 months of 8 months of inside and a breakout finally on the 9 month, and it nearly almost fails, and then they reverse it the other way, right? Like it's designed to draw you out, stop you out, question your abilities, and then rip you in the face. That's what this market is now, right?
So let me
After
let me
a lot
rephrase
of
what I was trying to say. I jumped into Adobe, but do
yeah.
you guys think that the leaders that we've seen over the last 6, 7, 9 months are still the leaders post Fed and into December and January?
No. Will they
um,
continue to be green and do okay?
That's not the question.
Probably.
That's not the question.
Yeah.
I'm saying, do you think the leaders who have led continue to lead? I'm not saying that they're green. I'm saying, do they continue to outpace everything else? Because I don't think that's the
yeah,
case.
I don't
I
think
think they
so.
will.
I think the new leaders are being born right now,
You
right?
think that's
And
the case, Nick?
Yeah, I think I think we'll see going into the end of the year, definitely some of those names perhaps sell off, but when they rebalance in January, I think January is when we're really going to see. I think you're going to see an acceleration and continuation in the names that have been leading heading into next year. And I also think that you're going to see, like, I was just going to say that, like, the difference between, like, let's say Adobe versus like Hims is just that, or like TAM or ARM, is that Adobe, you're betting or banking on a complete trend change, which definitely could happen. Like, if it's in within like a descending channel versus like, again, let's just say TEM, you're already in an existing sideways base. So like the breakout's gonna be fresh. It's just two different ways to play it. It's just
less
the
likely to fail,
Yeah,
right? Because
Adobe may
yeah,
not have
because the
been the
moving
best
averages are
example.
pointing up.
I may have gotten too excited about Adobe because I think Adobe is going to bounce from here. But let's just say a name like Marvell. All right, another again, I'm talking my own book, but there's nothing wrong with Marvell. They had good earnings. They didn't have great guidance going forward. So you get this huge sell off post earnings. And this by no means all year long, this is down for the year, right? And I'm not saying all of a sudden Marvell becomes a leader, but I think there's more opportunities maybe in a stock like Marvell than there is jumping into something that's already ran 150% over the course of the last 9 months.
That's probably a fair argument.
It's fair, but
This this go,
I
this
just
goes
I
leaders
back to
have
just
two
been
on my
years
weak, right?
ago. This goes back to 2 years ago. GP, you arguing with me that Intel was going to perform better than AMD, right? Like that
It
was,
did at the time.
yeah. But that's the same
Yeah.
argument I'm making now.
Yeah. That so what to answer your original question, which is will the leaders lead, right? So here's my theory, and it's a long-standing theory on why September is such a crappy month, right? It's choppy, it's down, it's whatever. All the positioning that happens year after year for the following year happens at the end of a quarter, and usually it's September, right? So what September is going to show us, we still got about 3 weeks left here. September is going to show us what our new leaders will be for 2026, right? And so that's what I'm paying attention to. And what comes out of this month is what I'd be looking at for a longer term leader into 2026, right? And so can the previous leaders maintain their lead? Probably, but as Bags was saying, I think things will start to catch up. I prefer moving averages that are trending up versus trending down. So if you're in the case of bottom fishing or catching stuff, CVS is a better setup than Adobe, right? Because CVS has gone through the downtrending moving
Oh, sure.
averages and they're starting to curl up, right? So if you want to catch a trend that's just starting, CVS is a better opportunity, whereas Adobe, Lululemon, UNH, I know I'm going to get raked over the coals for UNH, I get it. But these are all this way, right? So when you have upwards movement into a downtrending channel, the possibilities of rejection are highly likely, right? And so this is what I'd be looking for, right? The same concept we had in April. What is pulling into the rising 50 weeks, the rising 200 weeks, and where they will outperform. One of the ones that we called out on April, I think the week before we had the final bottom in April, was HIMS. Right into 23 was right into the rising, I think 200 week or 50 week. And you caught that, or if you just bought that and held, you made 200% on just equity, right? It's obviously come back down now, right? Because HIMS is high short interest, but that's the stuff I'd be looking for. And Adobe, yes, can outperform and do stuff, but the chances of failure on on these names that haven't based, right? No, I'm not picking on Adobe. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
no,
all
no,
these.
I'm not saying you are. I think I completely jerked us off course by mentioning Adobe. A better name would have been Apple. Apple hasn't led in 2025.
Yeah, Apple and Tesla, right? And so, like the same way that Apple and Tesla were the last ones to bottom in 2021, they will be the last ones
Hmm.
to lead the markets, right? And that's my theory. You can have your own theory, whoever wants to have any theory, but that's my theory. These guys have not participated, but they also didn't participate in most of 2022's downturn, right? Things were down 70, 80%. And it wasn't until December of 2022 when Apple and Tesla both Tesla was like 300, right? I think, or 315 in in October, November of 2022. And it was that last month it went from, or last month and a half, it went from 315 all the way down to 101, right? And that was the final leg. So that's my theory here is the new leaders will probably be Apple, and because everyone's sneezing on Apple, right? Oh, it's overvalued. Oh,
Yeah.
it's a mega upgrade cycle, blah blah blah. They're so behind the AI. Where do we hear that? In May, guys?
Where did we hear it?
Where did we hear it? We heard it in Google, right? And Google has only done a 50% move since. So narratives and news are the bane of your existence if you're an investor.
So
That's
Nick,
it.
Yeah,
Tesla and
I
Apple lead through the end of the year. Yes or no?
I think Tesla's time is. I think that pay package was the like what's the right word? I don't know. I have a feeling that Tesla is gonna go on an absolute freaking tear. I mean, I like the I mean, and then technically it looks great too, but it's in a range. Whereas like, Duzio calls it sheep slayer mode. Like it's I wouldn't be betting against Musk, and I agree with GP. But I remember that conversation discussing Apple and Tesla. We were like, they're about ready to take off. Um,
And
Going
Apple's
into
event is
next
happening
year, I think
shortly,
what you're
right?
gonna like, I think what you got to kind of ask yourself is like, if you're gonna focus on the mag names, do you want to be in mag or do you just want to be in the queues? Do you want to be? You're not gonna necessarily go on some crazy outperformance, but you're not gonna miss out at the same time. So it's just like the mags. Other than I think Tesla and Apple, I think the others are going to be a little bit slower to move. It's going to be like a
Randy
grind melt versus like just a rip.
Randy brought up something smaller semis could lead. Nick, it sounds like you don't think mags are the play here, right? So it sounds like you're thinking smaller. Are you thinking the
Yeah,
IW
I would be.
as a whole?
I think that's where you want to focus is the smaller cap space because I would I want to outperform. I don't want to just I don't know. I'm trying to outperform. I'm not trying to grind. You can't. I just don't. But on the flip side, I don't think you can go wrong with the mags. Like you could pick probably any one of them and do just fine. I would if I was going to hammer the table and pick one, it would be Tesla.
Yeah, but just by mags, right? The ETF that tracks these
Yeah.
and they're equal weighted. That way you can be participating and in your individual convictions like Tesla, you can be overweight or whatever, but mags mags Qs are a little bit more diverse, but mags is exactly what it is. And they're solid companies. They're gonna grow 10-20% a year, have maybe a random down year, but they're good, and if you don't want to cherry pick, it's a great option.
So
And
my
go ahead.
thesis has always been right. I want to have a sizable position in the mega caps. But I trimmed it down several years ago to just two, right? And yeah, you deal with the cycle of who goes up and who goes down and whatever. But would you rather have one or two names of the mags, or would you rather buy mags? I mean, you can make a case for both, but I'm just talking about each of you, both of you individually.
I would rather if I guess to kind of say it again, I would if I had to pick one, it would be Tesla. Otherwise, I would just go with the Qs.
So you wouldn't do two. You would do either Tesla or you.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how I would play it.
Yeah,
But I'm also kind of, my kind of
it's
belief
not
and
your thing. It's not your thing. I get
bias
it.
with Tesla. Yeah,
So for me, it's going to be the same answer. And the way I've been doing it is all the bottoms that we caught in 2022 and Amazon and Google and stuff like that. As like I sold Google, I sold Amazon. I don't care about the next 10-20% of these names. And so I rolled those into Tesla, right? So I basically bought like I think Amazon around 88, 90, somewhere around there, and sold around 190, 200, somewhere around there. And so now I I think Tesla is not undervalued by any means, right? It is a
No.
higher metric, but what it's telling you and what it told you in 2022 is that regardless of EPS growing 50% year over year, they were forecasting a downturn, right? Which is why the price was so weak, even as EPS was growing. And so you have the opposite happening now, which is price has kept strength insanely for how shitty the last two earnings have been, or last two earnings have been for Tesla, and kitchen sink type earnings for a for the leader in the EV space. Um, Tells you that they are anticipating that EPS is going to return to growth. And that's not this year necessarily, but that's in the next 2 years, right? So in 2022, they beat Tesla down 78%, and EPS continued to grow all the way into 2023, right? By 50%. And now the price. So to me, it's been rotating into Tesla from the other winners and catch the other names. Whether it goes down back to 250 or not, most of my entries, I think outside of maybe one or two, are below 200 in Tesla. I might be frustrated by the current price action, but it's still insanely positive,
Yep.
right? So um that's
All right.
like I like Apple, but I will always choose innovation, current innovation over operation.
All right, Nick, give us some of those underloved, surprising, smaller names that you would be looking at. Or if you just want to go into sectors, I know you like quantum. I know you like nuclear. I know you like my brain's not working fully today. Biotech, right?
Yeah, I like the drugs. I like again, like Tem and ARM are probably my two current favorite setups, bases, ranges. Neither have actually broken out. I just think they're currently set up to go. Um, I think you can look at robotics. I think you can look at drones. I think drones are going to be huge. Uh, you know, Rocket Labs has been a popular name. Um, RR was a huge one. What was the one that Nvidia took a big stake in? It was shoot, what was it? Hold on.
CoreWeave. No.
Not CoreWeave. It
Big
was a
Bear.
super cheap one.
Big Bear.
ARBE.
ARV.
I like you're just gonna need to pay attention to the stuff that they're tripping over my words here. I think you're just gonna need to pay attention to what breaks out and what really starts moving. But if IWM is the place to be and small caps, what
IWM is the place to be.
let me pull up the IWM.
That's
I
the
think
next
we're getting ready to
program.
go on a run to 300 is where I think the IWM is going. So until we
And they're
get
doing
there,
everything in their power to make sure that doesn't happen day after day.
yeah, totally.
Until they can't stop it. I agree with you, Nick. 320 is the mark I
It's
have. First tranche is 270.
yeah. Um, Shoot, I don't know. I've been on such a tear, like setting alerts. I've got alerts on just a crap load of stuff. So I think the energy stuff, a lot of the nuclear names, like let's say Jev, for instance, seems kind of extended. You have like Jev, Sedge, Lu, VRT, VST. They've all been on a massive run. I kind of am thinking that a lot of those alt energy names, once we see them like several of them maybe start splitting, maybe we'll start to see that sector kind of slow down. But I enjoy watching the back and forth with Duzio and MBG about energy and drugs. I personally, I think that they're both gonna run to like continue to run, just kind of at their own time and own pace. I don't foresee like how we as a planet kind of are moving through this massive kind of infrastructure rebuild without energy going. So I don't know. Trying to think of other drones, robotics. Hinge was another one that caught my eye. I got chopped out of that one. GH. Let's see here. Boston Scientific just broke out. MU looks fantastic. Oscar was actually kind of a favorite. It got
Boston Scientific looks awesome.
yeah.
It's
I
just
would
now
say
is
of
that all-time
all of the
highs?
charts out there, yeah, I think of all the charts out there, that base is high and tight, and again, probably is one of my favorite. Again, I keep saying another one of my favorites, but I just think it looks so good. Um, Oscar Health, I thought was fascinating because it was a FinTwit darling, got absolutely its ass beat right down, back down to the low end of its range and base. Actually, kind of put in a pretty looking island. And if you're going to get really nitpicky, it didn't actually hold the island, but it did hold the gap and go candle, which was kind of an ugly, or not an ugly, but it was a bit of a doji looking candle. Um, and then followed through. So I think, and Oscar too, in particular, like hasn't even broken out of its base yet. It just got smacked down to the low end, and now it's starting to build back up. The opportunities out there, I think, are like they're endless. I just, yeah, I don't know. I GP, did you happen to catch uh JC Peretz and I don't know if even that's how you pronounce his name, but him and what's that? God, what was his name? All Star Charts like 365. I can't remember his handle now, but they're talking this morning about heading into the end of the year and next year, and they're trying to figure out what could stop the momentum behind the names that we're seeing move. Like what could get in the way of this market currently? And none of them had a really good answer other than some like black swan unknown out there, whether that's like something crazy with like the administration, some form of like administration change, or did you happen to catch that, either of you, or
No,
not?
I don't watch
No.
people that annoy me. He's a good chartist, but I just don't like arrogance, right? Like,
Yeah, fair.
in this world that we live in, humility is what attracts to me. He's a good chartist. He calls stuff out. Um, but I
He
can't watch people who are
he rubs.
that
I don't know him at all. I
no,
think
just what
most
his
of his tweets are
personality is,
rage
right?
baiting. Actually, yeah.
It falls along the lines of clickbaiting to me. I'm not a big fan of that. Like his charts and stuff are good, but so no, I don't watch him. Same reason I don't watch the All In podcast. Those guys are monumental tools, but JC Paris is not a tool. He's confident in his abilities. Um, but I
It
know
was
that
just a
even when you're
fascinating
talking,
conversation. It was just a
yeah,
fascinating
I'd love to meet him
conversation.
someday. Maybe it's Oktoberfest if we get to go this year. Um, but
I think
I have a lot of respect for his charting skills.
they won't be at Stocktoberfest. They'll be at the Stansberry conference in Vegas. I think that's the same weekend as Stocktoberfest. The
Yeah.
Stansberry guys, I think, are kind of way more macro fundamental than I am, but I always kind of enjoy their take as well.
So I've got a lot of reasons on
But
why we can go down, right? We don't need a black swan event. Um, you just need resistance.
Sure.
Right? Like, like for guys who are always talking about charts, to be talking about macro events and black swan events on what could take down the markets should know better that just a bunch of resistance can be enough, right? More sellers than
Yeah.
buyers, etc. Um, things are valued pretty well. It's not like things are cheap, right? Certain things might be cheap, like NBIS that we saw a move in was cheap earlier this year. So there are names that are cheap, but overall, nothing is like really, really cheap, which tells you that people believe the markets can go higher. Uh, so I'm sticking to my fibs for the most part and using that. But other names to go on your theme, Ben,
Yep.
is some names that are from 2021. One of them is Fubo.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I was just doing some core weave doodling.
Yeah, no worries. But Fubo looks pretty good, weekly, monthly time frame. I just can't take a position when I'm a Netflix bull, but uh, it's it looks pretty good. It's holding, it's basing, it's there. The other one is I think SLDP.
Solid power. You've been digging through
Well,
the Russell, haven't you, GP?
I go through the Russell every night, right? I do at least a couple hundred charts every night because the 2000 is a lot of charts, but SLDP looks really, really good. Monthly time frame, follow through, all kinds of stuff. And the other one that caught my eye, I posted all these charts on StockTwix, FYI, is what was the one? Damn, I just said it in the chat. Blend,
UNH. Yeah,
BLND.
BLND.
Yeah. And so this blend looks good. Some of the older names, like even GoPro looks pretty decent. Open looks decent. But these are
Zoom.
running on fumes. These are really running on fumes and positioning, right? GoPro does jack shit until an April call buyer comes in and then it goes up 10% and then does jack shit. And then another April call buyer comes in and it goes up 10%. Like so, yeah, there's names that could work, but
So you both are fully in on, and again, we use the pejorative shitco, not because they're necessarily shit companies, but because they're smaller companies, right? Some of them may not be profitable, but you guys are all in on shitco fall.
Shitco
so
fall. I think I would agree. I think when drugs are running, I think it's for, I don't know why, it's just in my own head. I think when drugs are running, it's very indicative of a risk on, like, why the fuck not? Um, I think you need to ask yourself if, your, whether you want to be in momentum names or if you want to be in a longer term, like something that's going to trend. Obviously, like if you're in a Momo name, it's going to eventually roll versus like catching a more quality name that's going to continue to trend. The IGV looks fantastic. I think that's ready to move again. Both Datadog, Snow, Net, CRM. I kind of lost track of it, but it looked like it was nearing that kind of gap. I'm sorry, again, that EPS got kind of beaten down, but it looked like it was kind of eating up that gap. I there's so many names that I think look good and are setting up that it's kind of hard to really narrow it down
Okay,
to me
so
anyways.
we've talked about the landmines that we have coming over the next week and a half, right?
Yeah.
How do you navigate those potential landmines? You just completely ignore them and buy the chart and say, fuck it, I don't care what price I'm paying for it. I want to in on these names and I just go ahead and buy them. Do you try to be more tactical and sort of wait and see some of this stuff out? I know how I'm going to play it, but I'm curious to hear what you two think of doing over the next 10 days.
I'm likely not going to be buying weakness. I'm going to remain long in everything that I've got. My trail stops are set. If you're, with that being said, I do think if you're a position slash trend trader, and especially on a longer time frame, I think the dip is viable, but that has to be in alignment with again, like your style and your strategy, where obviously if you're a momentum trader, you're not buying weakness, you're trying to buy the breakout. And if you are a Momo trader, you should be focusing on relative strength and seeing if we do see the weakness, what is holding up the best? Like what does hold up the best? What gets bought up fast? Um, Again, despite how the month goes, my game plan is to remain relatively small and just allow my trail stops to do the work.
PB?
If you're a Momo trader, this is not the market for you, in my opinion. Because the Momo switches every single day. So if you're a Momo trader, you should be an intraday Momo trader. Find the hot name, ride it. Look at yesterday's, what was that stupid stock? Octo,
Octo.
right?
It's
Like
like
Yeah.
up
those are the mo like
5,000% at the high or some shit.
but that's indicative of this market looking for anything to move because nothing really is moving in a pretty decent, like we just talked about Lemonade, right? Breaks out of a 9-month consolidation and then immediately fails, right? Like Tesla has been sideways for 4 months. Apple obviously has had a move recently, but you can say it's been sideways for 2 years now, or at least a year.
Yep.
Small caps keep getting to 2,400 and keep getting rejected. Um, so there is intraday momos and people are taking full advantage of that. You can see that in the SPY, you can see that in the Q. On trend down days, there's no bounce, there is nothing, it is just straight down, and then there's no follow through, right? So to me, this is not an ideal environment for momos unless you're switching stocks every single day, and that's you're day trading, and that's fine, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like look at coin 444 and now basing at 300, right? So there's no Momo here, right? Like look at what coin has done in the last 6 weeks. Nothing, jack, right? And we can go through the list of so many names that have pretty much been kind of sideways since May, since the market broke out. In terms of if you want to take advantage of the moves, there's a couple ways you can do this. Buy what you think is at a good price and don't look at it again for a while. Or if you want to be more active versus passive, um, buy the support, sell the resist, trim the resistance, right?
Hmm.
But
Yep.
eventually the resistance stops becoming resistance. And a great example of that is Unity Software. And I'm surprised it's not on your list, Nick. This one's a beast or has been
It's
a beast.
it it's on my watch.
This
Yeah.
broke right through the pivot,
Yeah.
44 pivot, didn't even flinch.
Yeah.
Right? So this stuff is
Not one
like
that I played very well.
you could have trimmed at 39 3 different times, and then the fourth time broke through, right? So if you want to be more active, that's one way to play it. Everything's getting to pivot resistance, pivot highs, and getting slapped. So you can trim there and then rebuy lower, trim there, rebuy lower. A lot of people don't like that strategy because it averages up their cost, right? But they don't factor in the profit they're already taking, right? So if you bought it, let's say 29 and you sold it at 39, right? It doesn't adjust the price that you bought it at 29, but then when you rebuy it at say
Yeah.
36 or 37, it brings your costs up and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm only up 30% or whatever." So, whatever your mental makeup is in this market, follow it, stay true to it. Um, and have some patience because this market to me right now is driven by flow or driven by news. There is no front running. There is no either way, right? Like look at how bad that revision was. You would think today would be a downtrending day if people were really worried. So there's
It sold
Right.
no
off for a few minutes.
yeah, exactly my point, right? But there's no upside momentum either, right? It just gets to this point, and so um, we're waiting for PPI tomorrow, CPI on Thursday. most likely binary events that will probably do nothing to anything because um, let's be real, they already know the data, right? So it's not going to be some surprise or something like that. Yeah, I think you use technicals as long as they work, and until they don't work, you stay long.
We haven't talked about crypto today.
Let's do it.
Uh, GP, I know you love you some ETH. Nick, I think
I'm a
you jumped
Solana
in.
fan right now.
You,
Woo!
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I mean, your boy has been telling you those two names for I don't know how long, but if you watched our show, you'd know that. Nick, I think you were on board with some Sui, right?
yeah, I like Sui and XRP. I think Bitcoin's kind of trapped in a channel. Um, I think they all look good. I don't think ETH I think still looks fantastic. Um, it's
So I
just
have a
kind of
question
like
for you, both
it's
of you,
kind of the same
actually,
thing as
when you're talking about
yeah,
ETH real quick, right? So the ETH does look good, don't get me wrong, but my concern that continues to grow is the rise of all these treasury companies buying the crap ton of ETH still can't break it out in
yeah.
any kind of regard. Is that a concern for either one of you?
Nope.
Not where I'm currently long from. I think with like ETH, I have fibs drawn from the pivot lows in April all the way through highs. Um, if we creep back below 4,000, I would consider trimming some. I've got the 50% at kind of about 3,200. Uh, I really don't want to see us back in that range, but I'd be looking for a higher low to get put in if we do. Ah, yeah, actually, ETH is not looking the greatest here. I would
It's looking
still
like a
rather
double top if
play
you're
the
looking at it, right?
underlying, yeah, or kind of a failed. I mean, if we do creep back below 4,000, you could probably argue that this is a failed breakout. Um, so again, that's kind of the reason I would not be too happy if price does kind of break below 4,000. Um, I would still, unless it was like again, short-term momentum trading, I would rather be in the underlying asset versus like those treasury companies. I don't have a big enough brain and I'm not in the know to know what or why they're buying what they are. So again, like let's say you were playing like SBET or BMNR, it would, or I think was it GLXY. I think it's purely a technical setup, not for any other reason other than that.
Agree, but SPET is also arbitrage play, right? They're valued under NAV. So it's like 10 or 12% under net asset value, which is NAV. It's
Okay.
like 88, 89, right? Which means that it's trading below its assets on its balance sheet. So either it's implying that Ethereum is going to come lower to match the NAV, or it's an arbitrage play.
Play. Okay. I
Yeah,
actually kind of do like how some of those look, but it's just
What do
I,
you,
I
yeah,
Ben? You're the crypto god
yeah,
here,
no,
so
I went
yeah.
in. I made a sizable position in BMNR and the Solana one, DFDV, I think it was.
DFDV.
Yeah, DFDV, which is basically a Solana one. Um, I think we're in for a 30% run here in ETH relatively soon. And we're, if you guys remember the crypto money flow chart, right? Doesn't mean because money's moving from Bitcoin into Ethereum into the lower alts, that doesn't mean Bitcoin necessarily goes down. I think it's time to for me to start thinking about moving some of those assets back into Bitcoin eventually. But we're not there yet. So I just said thinking about it. So I think we're probably in for, I don't know, around a 30% move from here on Ethereum should be about, yeah, 60, right around 6,000 or 5,600, something like that. Yep. So between 5,600 and 6,000, that's where I'm kind of watching for the next move up. And then I think we'll see the rest of the alts, Solana next. I mean, Solana and Ethereum are like this, right? So it's hard to really separate one from the other. But then I think you're going to have a meme coin run, and I think that you know, once we get into October, if this move hasn't happened, then I'm going to probably be rethinking my positioning. But for the next 6 weeks, I think we're going to be in for a wild ride. And I've been pretty good about calling these things in the past, and I'm open to being wrong. And if I am, I am. But that's just the way the charts are lining up to me and the way I'm seeing. I mean, if you can remember back all the way back in 2001 and 2002, we had every celebrity endorsement of crypto that you can imagine. We're not seeing that right now, right? Like, I think you're still
Yeah.
seeing some pumping of crypto, but we're not to this exuberance level yet. And that would make this cycle very different than all previous cycles if we didn't get this huge exuberance into crypto. So I'm sticking by that until that breaks. And, I've increased my stake in several of the alts I've posted. I increased my stake in BMNR. I increased my stake in DFDV. I bought coin last week. So I'm pretty bound to crypto right now, and I just think that the way the cycles have happened in the past, the way the charts are lining up, I am biased and tilted higher than I am. We're going to chop for an extended period of time. And again, if we get into October and this hasn't happened yet, I'll probably be rethinking that. But that's where I'm at. That's where I am right now.
Yeah, I
It's
think this is
crazy.
institutional stuff, right? Like retail, it doesn't have the same kind of technical analysis, and it's like, oh, Solana's going up, let me buy. Whereas institutional investments in the crypto space have slowed down the progress in the short term, but tells you that long term, it's setting up for much higher moves.
Yeah, I mean, I look
Yeah,
back to strategy at the time, my MSTR, and since they've basically been nonstop buying Bitcoin since what was that 2020 or 2021. I mean, if you look at the comparison between what they've done, right, as a hedge to bit, or not a hedge, but as a proxy to Bitcoin, they've completely outperformed Bitcoin. And I, for a long time, said, I just want to own the asset. And I do want to own the asset. I am owning the asset. But at the same time, if I'm bullish on the asset, why wouldn't I be bullish the proxy too? Right. And it just gives me different
sure.
exposure from my traditional investment account as opposed to my crypto portfolio. So
Makes sense.
I see them one and the same, and if I lose, right, I lose in both accounts and not just one. And if I win in both accounts and not just one. So that's how I'm positioned. I
So
love
When you,
coin. We talked about coin under 300 for a couple weeks. I figured from my buy last week that this might be the last time that I get to step in coin at 300 for a while, below 300 for a while, right? So I bought, I think it was at
yeah,
294 or something like that. When I took my stab in it. So this is a position that I've held from the 50s, right? And if I'm not going to lever up on something I have a high conviction in, then what the hell am I doing?
yeah,
yeah, totally.
that's it. Coin is a great example of an island top formation becoming an island bottom formation, right? Like it's it's a great look, right? Basically, resistance is now becoming support and it's basing for the next like higher. And coin not breaking down tells you that most likely crypto is just consolidating, right?
Well, it could
Yeah,
absolutely break
when you
down. I mean,
zoom,
we've seen it before, but
Yeah.
I just think that there's so many tailwinds that we're gonna blow past these levels. Nick, you were going to say something?
yeah, when you zoom out to the weekly, several of the crypto names, including Coin, Mister, etc., like they're getting a ton of tight weekly closes.
I
And
put
so,
a very
Coin, for instance,
Go ahead.
Coin, for instance, we pushed into all-time highs, like the high of that first IPO week. We really like it really didn't come off the highs that hard. It's frustrating a lot of like short-term traders, but
Yep.
again, if you zoom out to the weekly, it's put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks tight closes here right above the 30 and the 40 or the 200 day. Um, it only, yeah, it peeled off like 100 points off the highs, and now it's just like sitting there. I would agree. I think when you zoom
Well,
out,
I
the
put
like
together
they look
a very
fantastic.
I put together a very detailed analysis on MSTR just because I think, again, I'm looking at how do I want to play Bitcoin when I rotate out of some of these other names. And so I started looking at strategy. And since they basically started taking on Bitcoin as their business, look how properly that they've held this 50 weekly. It's really
Yeah.
telling to me because that happened right around here. Um, and yeah, sure, it undercuts it, but it respects it, right? So it runs right into it and it fails. It runs right into it and it fails. It finally breaks out. It makes it support, right? So until that 50 fails, I think you can shoot against that number all day while maybe expecting a slight undercut of that 50. I don't think that's negative at all. Somebody, when I posted this chart on Twitter, somebody said, well, who's the sellers? And, basically the company's a scam. And that it may be, right? But the chart tells me that from the history of the time that they started doing what they're doing, that this has been a very technical trade to be in. And if the technicals break, then the trade's broken. It's pretty easy to follow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you guys say technicals, like I just hear behavior, like behaviorally. Like if
Yeah.
you're looking at a moving average to kind of tie a certain pattern or behavior to that particular name, it's a behavioral change. Like if that fails, you're like, okay, there's a change in behavior. Maybe I need to switch gears as well.
In this
Just yeah,
entire uptrend, there have only been, I think this is the only close. Well, no, there's two, and they're very tiny. Two closes below the 50. So if you close below the 50 on a weekly basis for more than 1 week, then it's a wash, right? Like something has changed in this trade.
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's uh let's switch back to the markets a bit. I think crypto is um I think crypto is just basing. I
Yep.
think it's um so
And
I,
that's
I want
that's
to
why
ask
I'm
you,
giving it like 6 weeks, GP. I'm
yeah,
saying sometime in October, if it hasn't changed and made up its mind in around 6 weeks, you got to move on.
that makes sense. I wanna ask your opinion of a big component of the XLE. To me, I got my opinions, but can you bring up XOM
I knew you were going to say Exxon.
and go to the daily back about 3 years?
You need to talk to Nick about this because my luck with the Oilers here, GP. We're in the
No, no,
same
no, I'm
boat.
not. I got no position, but to me, XOM is
22.
looking highly distributive,
What year?
right? There's a lot of red bars in this sideways action. Lots and lots of red bars in this sideways action. So I'm just curious on how you like that's the daily. The weekly is not as much, but the daily there's a lot of high volume red bars since 2022. So it looks distributive. It looks sort of like a rounding top. Some of the technicals aren't too bad, but this looks kind of like UNH before it died. It looks like Lulu before it died. It looks like um, Boeing before it died. And I don't know if Exxon will die, but um, just looks really distributive. So this is one of the ones that Nick, if you're looking for a canary in a coal mine, right? And
sure.
looking at what this is the one that kind of gives me concern because it is a big component of our macro. right, in general. So if XOM is breaking down, I don't think it operates in its own vacuum.
I think if XOM goes
I,
down, all the energy probably follows, right?
yeah,
Which means small caps
I
don't
would do.
break out.
Which means megas continue to lead the way.
Or they're just down less, right? But this is like if you're looking at stuff that is of concern, this one is a concern to me because it represents energy as a whole, right? Um, and so if this is distributive and has a move like UNH down 40-50% in a short time, that not doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad for the markets long term, but short term can be um, pressure inducing. That's why I brought it
That's
up because I'm concerned
something to
about this
be.
one.
Yeah, noted. I I wouldn't be like personally as much as I kind of like the look of XOM. If I was looking to get long for whatever reason, because I am probably the world's worst commodity trader, um, I'd be looking for something like a Google type or like a gap one, what we discussed in terms of like gold, just set your alert for all-time highs or something like that. I would rather see like a massive gap, like I don't know, it fucking just gaps into all-time highs and doesn't look back. Like that would be the kind of like igniting bar or the entry I'd be looking for. Otherwise, sure stuck. Yeah,
It
I
just looks
see your
highly
point
distributed.
in terms of the IWM as well. So I don't know. That's something I'm gonna ruminate over.
That's me, right? Like I have a thesis on IWM and small caps. I hope it works out, but I got to analyze all the different components that can go into potentially it being another failure, right? Especially with the
Yeah.
consistent rejections at 2400, while the underlying narrative is showing that we're most likely going to have rate cuts. I just have to take a look at all different types of components. So this one is the one that kind of stood out to me. Thanks for your thoughts, guys. Ben? And
You're
by the
welcome.
way, you're not alone in being the worst commodity trader. I think commodity trading is the worst for everyone because it is so retarded.
Oh, feelings. Again, you guys know me well enough after all these years we've been doing this. I try to trade the things that I know, the things that I have any type of experience with or knowledge of. And if I don't know it, I mean, it could run like crazy and it could be the best buy that has ever happened in the history of the market. And I just don't feel confident to buy it, right? Because I can look at
Yeah.
the chart and I don't know shit about this company.
Wait, so is Apple, wait, sorry, randomly, is Apple having its thing? Yeah, it's having its thing because it moved up a lot.
Yeah, they're going to tell you here's a new iPhone today.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Okay. Sorry, just
Yeah.
Here's a slightly improved battery and cameras, and
and
we have a
so
discount
the
model and a model that no one really needs, and that's what they're going to say.
well, I'm probably gonna upgrade. It's been 3 or 4 years now for me. So they
Yeah,
have a
that's not
customer
great.
me for a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I was gainfully employed, I needed to have the newest equipment because that's how things move, right? I had several phones that I always had to check what was happening on them with different apps and websites, etc. So there's people who are going to buy these phones. There's no doubt. But I'm with you, GP. I think I'm on year 3 of my phone, and I might upgrade, but I'm not. It's not the end all be all for me at this stage of life.
Absolutely. I think for me it's been typically 5 years. I had the X, I have the 14 now. Before that I had the 5 and the original 3. Um sorry, the other name that looks awesome to me and we talked about it
Palantir.
earlier today. No,
I know.
you're gonna hate it. You're gonna hate it.
Ooh,
Intel.
Who?
Intel.
Oh, Intel. I think Intel's all right.
This thing
yeah, it's
is
a nice stage one base.
coiled. It's
Yeah,
coiled. It has a massive island set up.
It's it's easy
It
to see.
is
I've marked
so
the
coiled.
ranges. It's easy to see.
yeah.
It's easy. It's easy peasy.
Yeah.
I think you could be right. I think we could finally see Intel back into the $30 camp soon. GP.
Yeah, yeah, I think higher than that. Honestly, like you finally have the backing of the government. Um, dude, like let's take a look at 2008.
Yeah,
All the
no, I'm
companies that
I'm
had
just laughing because it's funny to me. That's all.
yeah, yeah. But the real I was just talking to my cousin about this is like the reality is all the companies that had the backing of the government from 2008 have done really well
Yeah,
over time.
you look at Ford and GM, they did great.
Yeah, yeah, but Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs,
Yeah, the banks did great for sure.
yes, and banks still look insanely strong. They are just they look great.
Hey
Look at
guys,
Goldman today. Ooh.
I know we're running out of time, and I don't want to keep you both all day. We normally do this for an hour, and we started just a little bit
Oh yeah.
late. But one name that I was doodling on earlier, and I don't have a position here, and I know it's been a very hotly, um, it's been a favorite on the old stock twits for a little while. Is CoreWeave. I remember, and GP, you're probably going to say it's a recent IPO. I have no interest,
Looks
but
great.
it looks great. We got an approval. Nick,
Yeah.
I think this at some point was something you were trading, or am I wrong?
Yeah, I'd been in and out. I had traded in and out of it as it was kind of melting up the 10-day. I like it here. I think you have a good opportunity for the double bottom to play out on the daily. Your confirmation is through that 105,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
pending it gets through that 105, it's kind of reclaiming a pretty kind of nasty pivot low from back in what is it, August, which I would, and kind of that big nasty wide range bar on the weekly. So if it can get back in and kind of hold below, it's already reclaimed the low of that candle, which is, let's see here, August 15th. 105 is just the confirmation. That's all I'm kind of where I'm
yeah.
getting
No,
at.
I
I
and
think it looks good though too.
just like I was mentioning with MSTR. I think the 9 is the key here on the weekly, right? Because we had a push down into it, we had a push down below it, we had a push down up to it. It tried to break out, failed, right? It tried to break out again and failed. Or sorry, it broke up, it didn't go out of the channel, and then it broke down. So it's a breakout failure.
Yeah.
Now we're testing that 9 weekly again. I think that 105 spot's probably the spot, Nick. I think 105, 106. And if you look at these candles right here, that's almost dead on 105. I think that's your spot. Get long over that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so where to me, we have potential. I like the way it looks. There's a decent amount of volume, but if it does not clear this 101 area, 101.50-ish or something like that, and close above it, it's got volume and stuff, but it's putting in a doji today, right at that level. And so to me, because it's an IPO, the risk of downside movement is always there on a higher trajectory than non-IPOs that have more historical data to support their resistance, but it's broken the downtrend, the same downtrend it broke at the beginning of August and then immediately rejected that little pivot high and rejected. And so that's the level we're coming into in terms of resistance. So it needs to
Yeah.
clear here. Um, or I think this goes back to 65, right? And
Yeah.
there's been bullish positioning the last 2 days. So I don't think you're out of the woods. It does look good for potentially higher, but it needs to start taking out these resistance points, or I think it can go lower.
Yeah, I think you can tackle it. You can shoot, like I like to say, you can shoot against like this 83, 89, or 84 level if you want to.
Yeah,
I think you can play against that as long as price is above it, you're okay. Price goes below that, you're probably looking somewhere lower in this channel. And then obviously if it breaks out over 105, 106, you're probably looking at a breakout that's going to take you, I don't know,
back to
probably
all-time
up
highs.
somewhere in the 130s, 140s.
Yeah. So speaking of IPOs, the better look for me is actually eToro.
You mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
Alright.
So you
Why
have,
do
if
you
you go to
like
the
this
weekly
better?
chart, I do because of a couple of things, and I'll go through why. On the weekly chart, you had this low that was made at 45. Uh, they came back and broke it to 43, tried to follow through the next week, did not even get to the low. Last week, we had a bullish engulfing of that bar and on volume here, right? So to me, this I like because at 45 I have a $1.50 stop versus CoreWeave at 98 I have a $15 stop, right? Like to me, the data here represents a better risk to reward on this name. If it breaks 43.50, I'm wrong, but no harm, no foul, really. I lose what, 5 or 6%. It's not the end of the world, and I can be okay with it. But with CoreWeave, because it's got such a wide range, this is why I would choose this. And um, you have that, what is it called? Like mini kind of or inverse head and shoulders here that's forming too on the daily eToro,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So this is a betting stock, right? I believe. What else do they do? Power social investment.
Toro's a broker.
Okay, but don't they do other stuff too?
I think they have, I mean, so does Robinhood, right? They have like futures and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like if they're doing like sports betting and stuff like that, that's what I thought as well. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I
But
haven't downloaded eToro, but
this is another
they are
crypto
doing some
name,
stuff.
right? So if crypto is basing and looking for higher, then if coin is going higher, then eToro should come with it.
Yeah.
And so the risk to reward is why I choose this over CoreWeave. They can both fail, but at least my loss on eToro is much less, much more defined and
I like
tighter.
my Adobe chart better than your eToro chart, but
No, no, absolutely. Right. And Adobe is hated. So
it is.
it
And
makes sense.
I love it. That's probably my biggest penchant is I love a hated stock. Hey Nick,
Yeah.
final word.
Yes, sir. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, StockTwits Community Rip live. You can watch that every place that StockTwits is streaming. GP,
Do not sleep on regional banks. Not sexy, but powerful.
let's look at the KRE real quick. There you go.
Yep.
These
Uh,
are all inverse head and shoulders at the GFC highs. So you literally have a 17, 18-year base in the making here, right? And so if they get the ignition bar, these can be, like I said, not sexy. These are not sexy traders like your Palantirs of the world, but they can be extremely, extremely powerful. And they're big beneficiary of rate cuts because refinancing will go through the roof, and lots of other names. And on that same note, as I said last week, and I'll say every week until this is true, financials in general are are the last sector of the bull market. Doesn't mean financials can't run for 2, 3 years, but they are the last sector of the bull market. It's a late stage bull market.
We'll talk more about this tomorrow because I have theorized that the cycles are getting tighter. But we can talk about that tomorrow. My last word is, just love the people you love, right? Today would have been my buddy JR, who passed away a couple months ago's birthday. And I can remember us at this point last year enjoying, being together. And now he's not here. That goes for your family too, and you guys. I appreciate you. I love you both. So love those people that you love, and hold them close. So anyway, just a bit reflective today on a special day to me. But hey, we'll see you tomorrow. We love and appreciate everybody in the chat. Randy, everybody else, we love your support. We love you being here, and we will peace out and see you mañana.